What is it that brings botanists, naturalists, and nature lovers from all over the world to this little enclave of Nieuwoudtville? What brought the BBC Natural History Unit with Sir David Attenborough, Sir Gillian Prance, the director of the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew? To explain that to you, I'm going to take you down to the bottom of the Bokkenveld escarpment, onto the so-called Kneersvlakte. The word Kneers in Afrikaans means to grit your teeth. It's tough country down there. You're looking at a mean of 175 millimeters per annum, and to survive, you literally have to grit your teeth. To the casual bypasser, it looks as if there's nothing there, but in actual fact, it's the succulent capital of the world. An incredible wealth of succulent species. As you ascend the 500 meters to the top of the Bokkenveld escarpment, most people are more than surprised to drive into true Cape fynbos. All that has happened is that the rainfall has increased dramatically from 150 millimeters to 500 millimeters in some places. It's the northern extremity of true Cape fynbos. It's a typical fynbos biome with proteas, restios, those are the reed species. The soils are sandy and acidic. Not all that great for agriculture, but rooibos tea is produced very successfully here. Just to the west of the little village of Nieuwoudtville, you move out of fynbos into the next vegetation type, which is renosterveld. Undoubtedly the most endangered vegetation type in southern Africa. Vast areas of the winter rainfall region, including the Swartland and the southwestern districts, were originally covered by a renosterbos or Elytropappus. From a farming point of view, it is probably not worth an awful lot. So particularly after the Second World War, when tractors and implements became bigger, it became possible to open up vast areas. And this in turn put tremendous pressure on renosterveld. In the process, we lost an environmental treasure. Renosterveld in its natural state supports a wealth of plant species, in particular bulbous plants. Very little pristine renosterveld actually remains. Happily, on Glenlyon, we still have 180 hectares of this endangered veld type, a botanical treasure. Rainfall has dropped from 500 millimeters on the edge of the escarpment to 350 millimeters. And the pH, or acidity of the soil, has gone up from 4,5 to 5,4. As you got to the top of the escarpment, looking further east, you were probably quite surprised to see a range of rocky hills. This is a dolerite sill. The transition from renosterveld or dwikatillite is very dramatic. Within 20 meters, the pH changes from an acid to an alkaline soil. The sill is a heavy clay loam soil which cracks when it dries and supports a wealth of interesting, exciting plant species, and in actual fact is regarded as one of the richest botanical areas in the world. The rainfall here has dropped to 300 millimeters. Moving further east, we move out of the dolerite into the succulent Karoo veld, where the rainfall has decreased further to 200 millimeters. It is characterized by palatable karoo shrubs and, of course, the feiches or mesembryanthemums, which you all know well from your gardens. What we've done now is called a transect. We've moved from west to east through 4 different vegetation types: the fynbos, the renosterveld, the dolerite sill, and the succulent karoo area. But we've only covered 20 kilometers. We can take folk to the top of the escarpment and show them the typical fynbos species like proteas, leucadendrons, and so on. And a quarter of an hour's drive away, we are looking at the mesembryanthemums, arid area plants. Bird-wise, the fynbos has long-tailed sugarbirds, sunbirds, protea seed eaters, and a quarter of an hour's drive away, you can see double-banded coursers, the Namaqua sandgrouse or kelkie vane, larks, arid area birds. This dramatic contrast brings a lot of people here. But there's one far greater reason for the likes of the BBC coming here, and that is that this escarpment happens to support the richest geophytes in the world. What is a geophyte? Geophytes are perennial plants with subterranean water storage organs. If you think of it, this includes all the bulbs, corms, and rhizomes. Almost 40% of the species here are geophytes. There's no place on earth that remotely approaches that figure. In California, it's 2%. At the Guchap Nature Reserve in Namaqualand, it's 16%. It's an incredibly rich flora. This very interesting little legume grows on the dolerite soils in the Nieuwoudtville area, in the dolerite soil. It's called Lotononus hirsuta, or Heuningsblom is the local name for it. Wonderfully adapted to these soils. Below the surface here, it's hard to believe that it has this very impressive woody corm, which is nothing else but a storage organ. It belongs to the geophyte group, storing water to carry it through difficult times. When we subject it to drought sometimes, some of the other flowers will start wilting, but the little Lotononus, the little Heuningsblom, shows no ill effects whatsoever. Once the first winter rains come, it shoots out lots of little shoots from the side, relished by the sheep. Being a legume, it seems to be very palatable and nutritious, probably has a higher protein content than some of the other plants, and is certainly a great asset in the vegetative cover and the grazing potential of these soils. This beautiful little bulbous plant here belongs to the family Iridaceae. It's called La Perousea oriagina, and it's named after Jean de La Pérouse, who was a French navigator, an explorer and naturalist, and lived in the late 1600s. The pollination of this flower is really interesting. It is visited by a species of long-tongued fly of the genus Proseca. It's a fly much bigger than you would expect, and the proboscis is has an absolutely amazing length. He moves in, he carries the proboscis under his body. He doesn't recoil it like some of the hawk moths do. Under his body, as he gets ready to move in, he brings it forward and puts it right down what you probably think is the stem, but in actual fact is the tube of the plant. It's part of the flower, and the nectar is right at the bottom. In the process of sucking up the nectar from the tube, pollen is brushed off onto the forehead of the fly, in the case of La Perousea, and then probably moves off to another beautiful little species growing up in the dolerite rocks here called Babiana framesii, which also has a tube. In the case of the Babiana, the pollen is brushed off onto the back of the thorax. In this way, nature prevents clogging of the stigma by foreign pollen. Nieuwoudtville is famous for its bulbinellas, and particularly for the spectacular orange Bulbinella latifolia, an endemic which grows only on the dolerite soils. The ruby red Romulias or Sablom silk flowers in full cry are an unforgettable experience. Cup and saucer, man in a boat, Androsymbium pulchrum, an endemic species, is the most striking of all the Androsymbiums. 3 species of Spiraxis, all endemics, occur on the Bokkenveld escarpment, elegans and Palanzi, and then the queen of them all, Tricolor. This little legume, Dolichos decumbens, exudes a captivating scent, on a par with any perfume. 17 species of Hesperantha, the evening flower, occur from the Huntham to Nieuwoudtville. Some stay open way into the night and are pollinated by moths. Our challenge on Glenlyon was how to preserve this irreplaceable heritage and integrate it into our farming system in such a way for it to become an asset. Initially, we identified the highly sensitive areas on the property and fenced them off until such time that we understood the management to a point where we could remove that fence again. We learnt an awful lot in these mini flower reserves. Initially, we kept our stock out, only to find that after 2 or 3 years, the plants growing outside the reserve were growing far better than those in the reserve. Of course, we had created an artificial system devoid of a vital component, namely animals. Carl Peter Thunberg, a student of Linnaeus, and one of the early Europeans to ascend this escarpment in November 1774, referred to it as the Bokkenland, because of the vast herds of game that were traversing the flats. Animals are a vital part of the ecosystem. They prune plants, they remove dry residue, and tramp and compress seeds back into the soil with their hooves. We would love to do it with all the species of a game that originally occurred here, but what with fences, this is difficult to achieve. So we try to simulate it as far as possible using our domestic stock, which are merino sheep in our case, and graze our mini flower reserves in February, because that's the one month, according to our plant surveys, when nothing is flowering. Sometimes we graze them hard, simulating the action of the vast herds of game of yesteryear. Initially, the farmers in our district were not receptive to fencing off sensitive areas. The turning point came when we very soon realized that 99.9% of the plant species here were palatable at one or other stage. So, by conserving the flora, you were in actual fact creating a vast fodder bank, always an asset in marginal rainfall zones. Of course, a good spin-off of this policy is that it opens the door to ecotourism. Being able to share the wonderment of nature with others is a huge privilege. We don't kill anything on Glenlyon, not even caracal or jackals. We definitely don't kill the porcupine. The geophyte concentration here is in excess of 10,600 per square meter. Porcupines play a vital role in reducing this concentration and in the process spreading the bulbs over the entire veld. Finally, their aggressive digging creates a rough surface for water retention after a rain. We believe in live and let live. We rather nurture the natural prey of the potential predators. Also, we are very aware of the vital role played by every animal, bird, and insect in the big system. Consequently, for more than 35 years now, we have never used a plant or soil insecticide or fungicide, and we seem to have a pretty good pest-predator balance. Spraying toxic materials is the short-term solution. It is definitely not the long-term solution. Also, in this context, the retention of pockets of biodiversity play a vital role in providing a stable habitat for everything. In 1961, we decided to cease intensive wheat cropping on Glenlyon. In retrospect, maybe one of the better decisions we have taken here. Intensive cropping in marginal rainfall zones worldwide does not appear to be sustainable in the long term. On the contrary, we think it's the first step in desertification. Glenlyon originally was fenced according to water points. I can't blame my forebears for this, since they didn't have plastic piping. In the 1960s, we broke down virtually all the internal fences and re-fenced the farm according to vegetation types. This is the foundation of all sound rangeland management systems. We were able to provide water for our stock using wind power and force-head systems, and this has dramatically facilitated our rangeland management to the betterment of the veld in general. Most people regard the wildflower displays as being early in spring, August and September, but the other side of the coin is what happens in March. Nieuwoudtville and Springbok have the richest concentration of amaryllis species in southern Africa, which boasts the richest number of species in the world, followed by the Andes Mountains in South America. They are a fascinating family, well adapted to survival in harsh environments. They do their thing in stages. The big flat leaves are out in winter, photosynthesizing to produce energy for the production of a spectacular flower in the latter part of the summer. The amaryllids include species like Brunsvigia, Bouphone, the gifbol, Hymanthus, the paintbrush, Crossani, Crinum, and Gethylus, the cucumacrunca, which produces leaves in winter, flowers in November and December, and fruits in April and May. The fruit, of course, in a bottle of brandy, is an age-old remedy for stomachache. Most of the species have very effective seed dispersal systems, the Brunsvigia roly-poly action across the veld being highly efficient. Glenlyon has 2 paddocks that have been spared for more than 30 years, which produce spectacular displays of particularly Brunsvigias and Hymanthus if triggered by a rain at the end of summer. Unspoiled places are becoming a rare commodity worldwide. The way life is going in the big cities of the world today, more and more high-powered, more and more hectic, with higher and higher stress levels. One shudders to think what it's going to be like in 5 or 10 years' time. This sort of lifestyle has all sorts of undesirable spin-offs on mind, body and soul. One can go just so far down that road until sooner or later you come up against a brick wall. You're probably not too far from breakpoint. I don't believe that medical science has the therapy for this condition, but I do believe that nature has. Man, sooner or later, simply has to resort to environmental therapy. It's so important for children to be exposed to nature. Nature cuts you down to size and makes you realize that you're a very small cog in a very big machine, and that experience does no one any harm at all. It's vital that mankind comes to his senses and realizes the importance of conserving pristine environments if the human race is to survive at the end of the day.